everyone! Today I'm going to be showing you my updated language learning Notion page. Basically, I made one of these a really long time ago, but recently I noticed that I haven't been using it because it's just so outdated and there was not really any flow. Like, it just felt like a lot of separate pages and it didn't feel like everything was connected, which for me is a no-no. My Notion pages are very connected. The databases are like... I made a new one and I've been using it for the past month and I am obsessed. I am not kidding. I think this is the best Notion template I've made. Okay, so when you first open up the page, this is what it looks like. So as you can see up here, we have our language goals, the languages we're currently studying, our study analytics. I'm so excited to show you. Our little Discord group that we have for us language learners, and a little page where you can start, because I feel like in the beginning, it might seem overwhelming because it's a lot of databases, but it's really easy to set up and you're gonna see the step-by-step of everything in here. On the side, you can see we have our study log, journal, weekly plan, dictionary, and we have all of our different types of resources. And in the middle here, we have our weekly plan. So this is what we're doing this week. As you can see, like I have an Anki session in Indonesian, and I also wanted to finish Unit 1 in Indonesian. You can also see which resource I'm using for this. So you can see I'm using Duolingo, and here I'm using Busuu, and here I'm using this Spanish song called Despero, and so on. And on the bottom here, you can see the languages you're currently actively studying. Active study days are basically days that you've logged into the Notion. So you can see that I started learning Russian 21 years ago. I just put my birthday for that one. But the days that I actually sat down and studied it was only 11. So that's whatever's, you know, on the Notion page. I'm gonna wait for this dog to stop barking. I think we should start with the study log because this is the page that you would be using every day, because this is basically you literally logging how you studied that day. So in this page, you're gonna see all of your languages here separated. You're gonna see the date that you studied, how you studied that day. Whenever you've completed it, you check this box, how many minutes you studied for that day. And the minutes are actually really useful because then you can go into your analytics and you can go ahead and see how many minutes you studied for in each language. So I can see that ever since I started learning French, I have studied for exactly 676 minutes. And it's really interesting to track this metric. What is the word? You can also then connect it to a resource. The resource is going to be another page. So I really like this because you can see exactly how you studied, you can see how much you studied, and the description is just like a quick little description. If it's something just like an Anki session, you don't really have to explain this because it just means like going through your vocab. Whereas if you're doing something like a journaling session, you can say exactly what you wrote about. So it's just kind of a log of how you studied. The second view we have is the weekly view. Here you can see what your week looks like this week, what your week looked like last week, and you can also move some tasks around. So this is really comfortable. So for example, if you're like, I don't really have time on Friday to study a lot of languages, so I'm just gonna focus on Spanish and Russian and I'll just move this to another day. It's very quick, very easy to just see an overview of everything at once. The next view is the monthly view. This is essentially the same, but you see everything in a month. This looks overwhelming. It's really not, because some of these can be like 10-minute Anki sessions. So you just see kind of what you're doing and also which language you're doing that in. And this view, you're gonna see this view on every single database. This view means it's like the editing view, because sometimes if a database is empty, it can kind of like show up weirdly on the first page. So if your first page is empty, it might show up weird. So what I would recommend you to do, which you don't even have to do this because I have, like I showed you, I have this little start here page, so you're not gonna have any issues. But if the database is ever empty for some reason, I would go into this edit button and everything will show up fine then. But you won't even need to do that. I'm just letting you know that on every database that option is there. So the study log is connected to essentially everything. It's connected to your resources, it's connected to your language. So that's how you know how many minutes exactly you've done in every single language, because all the databases are like interconnected with each other. The next page we have is the journal. The journal is very straight to the point. If you ever want to write down notes, if you ever want to journal, you can even rename this to notes. Like if you take notes on Notion, this can be your notes page. For me, I don't take notes, so for me this is the journal. So I will literally just have like my French journal entries here and my Spanish journal entries, and I have the date here so I can look back and kind of see what I've written, and it is very useful for that. Once again, there's a little edit button to make sure all the information is correct, because in this view it's kind of difficult to edit some of this information. Also, another thing to note is on the top here, you can basically navigate through this whole language learning hub. You can go back back to the study log, back to the journal, to the resources, to the languages. It's all very quick and very connected, which is what I like. The next thing we have here is the weekly plan. This is essentially what you're seeing here, but what it also has is a little weekly checklist. So you're not gonna have this box. This box is here for when you initially add the template to your page. So what it says is basically, once you do get this template, you have to configure this weekly checklist. What that means is not that difficult. Once you hover over it, you're gonna see this little icon that says configure template. You click on it and then you just edit like whichever languages you're studying. If you're studying 4 languages, for example, and not 3, you're gonna go ahead and press /4 columns, however many you need. I think you can go up to 5. For example, you can do 4 columns and then you can write the names of your 4 languages here. So this is basically just to make a little checklist every week, because I feel like before we make a specific plan, it's really nice just to see an overall checklist. So once you do this, you can basically press create new weekly checklist and you make your little checklist for the week, like you see I have made here. So I can see that this week in Spanish, I want to schedule 1 italki lesson, I want to journal 2 times. So then when I'm planning my week, which is my study log right here, I know to include these things. So I know, okay, for example, this week I want to take an italki lesson. So I can see that, which day was it? I don't even remember. Oh, see, I haven't even included an italki lesson, so I have to book an italki lesson. I know not to forget that because I have it in my checklist. And if you want to see it in a list format, you can go ahead and click here and you're gonna see it sorted by date based on what you're doing this week / next week. Moving on, we have our dictionary. This isn't just like a simple dictionary of just like, okay, I'm just gonna write down these words that I learned, whatever. They are connected to your resources. So for example, if you started studying Italian with Duolingo, for example, and you get a lot of new words from Duolingo, you can then write, okay, I'm gonna show you because I want you to understand. So for example, if you look at these Russian words, I learned these Russian words with my Russian teacher, Yulia. So what we can see basically, if we click on her page, in this case, she's considered a resource. I'm gonna explain this in a second, but in this case, she's considered a resource. So once you open up the page of a resource, you're gonna then see specific words that you learned with that resource. So it's all super connected. You don't have to like connect it by yourself. You just like go onto the resource. So for example, you know that today you have a lesson with your italki teacher. You go on their page and you write down the words that you learned from them. Then when you go into your dictionary, you can see exactly where you learned that word from. Okay, so editing Anna forgot to add an important point. There's another view called Make Flashcards, with which you'll basically see a list of all your words, and if you click on them, you're gonna see that they kind of leave the list automatically, which means that you made a flashcard with them. So in that way you can easily keep track of like which words you've made into flashcards and which words are yet to be made into flashcards. Speaking of resources, that is the next thing that we're going to be going through. So you can see in our resources here, we have apps, websites, people, books, movies, series, and songs. So one thing to clarify, people, I know they're not resources, but we're talking about language exchange partners, we're talking about teachers, we're talking about YouTube channels that you use to study your language. So these are people that you're going to specifically be using as a resource. People are not resources, but just throwing it out there. So this is essentially one big database of everything, and like I said, these resources are connected to your languages, these resources are connected to your study log. Okay, so clicking into resources, you can see right here that you can kind of switch quickly between the different types of resources as well. So your apps, your websites, your people, your books, your movies, your series, and your songs. As you can see, my resources pages are not as filled out as the other pages because right now I'm kind of using the same resources a lot, but as you learn your languages for longer and longer, these lists could be long, like long. But this is really good for you as well, because if you ever kind of like pause studying a specific language, whenever you do come back to it, you'll have like a long list of things you can use. And you can also write down resources that you don't yet use and just keep this as like an idea bank for whenever you get bored of your resources. But so far for me, I've only been writing down the ones that I've used this past month. So in this first page, you're going to be seeing all your resources grouped by language. So I can see all of my French resources, you can see the type of resource it is, and also when it was last used. So you don't have to update this last used feature. This is, once again, where the connection comes in, because your study log basically says the day that you use that resource, and it takes the last day of when you use that resource and it puts it here. So you can see that the latest time this was used is at the top, so that, you know, you can see your favorite resources, the ones that you're using most often. These dates haven't even happened. The reason it's coming up, it's because I have plans to study using that resource that day. So don't plan like way too much ahead. I would always say plan up to a week ahead, and that's about it. If you want to plan like a month ahead, I would just write it down as like a plan, but don't put it in your study log. For your study log, I would only keep it like about a week ahead. So yeah, you can see this for every single language. You can see when you last used it, and I feel like this is really useful because also you can straight away see the things that you haven't been using. For example, I love Busuu, but you can see that for French, I haven't been using it, but I have used it for Italian, and I love Busuu for Italian. I also love Busuu for French, but that's the thing. I forgot that I could use it, you know? So this is almost like a nice reminder just to see like, oh, I haven't even used it. Like, let me use it. Once again, the edit view, just to make things a little bit more clearer. This is if you ever want to edit information, it's a little bit easier than here, but you can still edit stuff here. Like if I want to add something, it's really easy, but just in case. So going on to apps, you're going to see all your apps grouped by the different languages. This is more or less the same for each of these pages, but I'm gonna quickly show you because some of them look a little different. So for websites, it looks like this. You can also add the URL of the website so that if you want to go to the website, you just quickly click it and it takes you straight to that page. So for example, this link takes me specifically to the Italian learning section in Closemaster. Here, it kind of shortened the link so you can't see it, but if you press edit URL, you can see that it's taking me straight to the Italian page. So it's really easy because you can quickly press on all the websites that you need from here. Going into the people, you can also add images for your people. So there's an option to add images for all your books, all your movies, all your TV shows. I didn't want to put pictures of my people here because I'm like, usually this is on for me. I do have images for them, but I didn't want to put it here because I don't have their permission. So if you want to do that, basically the way you do that is you go to gallery, card preview, and image, and it will pop up. But I'm just currently not showing the images. For books, I don't have any books. I need to add books because I have books to read. For movies, this is what it looks like when you have a picture, but I just haven't added a picture here yet. And also series and songs. So for songs, you can also add a little URL just to like quickly go into it. So this is just the website to the lyrics of the song. Oh, okay, wait, let me show you what's inside every single page of the resources. So for example, let's go into my Russian teacher Yulia because we were talking about her earlier. So when you open this up, you can see that this is a whole separate page. You can see all the times that you've studied with her here. So you can see all your 5 study logs. So you can see exactly how many times you've studied with her. Here you can quickly navigate throughout the different pages. And here you have the dictionary and study log. So the dictionary, like I said, you can see exactly what words you're learning with her. So for example, if you have like a lesson with someone, you can just open up this page and take down this vocab, and it's gonna automatically say, like if I open up this word, you can see straight away it's connected to Yulia. I didn't have to do that, it does it itself. And then the other thing is that you can see the study log specifically with her, like with that resource. So I can see kind of a list of when I've studied with her and also when I'm going to be studying with her in the upcoming month, week, whatever. You can see the weekly view if you have any like lessons with her this week, and you can see the monthly view as well, just to kind of get like a brief overview. And this isn't just for people, this is for every single resource that you have. So if you open up the page, like for example, I can open up Duolingo French. I haven't used it, but you can see that it's the same. So like if I add a word here, I'm just gonna do this because I can't think of a French word right now. It's gonna automatically add it to Duolingo French. So yeah, that is the beauty of the resources and the dictionary and the way they're all connected. And that is it for kind of the main pages that you would be using in this template. The next pages we have are on the top here. So it's your goals, your languages, your study analytics, the Discord chat, and the start here. So the goals are fairly simple. This is just your goals for each language. One thing I want to say is please make like little project goals. Like don't write a goal of like, I want to be fluent. Like write something that you can tick off. Like you can still make a pretty vague goal. For example, like I made a goal in Indonesian to learn phrases and vocabulary to order food. Like that's still pretty vague, but it has a very specific goal. Like I'm gonna look up words like of different food names. I'm gonna look up the phrases of how to order food. I'm gonna look up like the most, I don't know, famous dishes from Indonesia. And that way it's almost like a little project. Like I can treat it as a project rather than just like this overwhelming huge goal. And here in the edit section, you're gonna see this current and target numbers. What this means is you can see right here, there's a little progress bar. Whichever goal has numbers attached to it. So for example, like I don't know, learn 3,000 new words, you can see how many current words you have studied and what is your target. If it's a goal that is just kind of like a tick off goal, then put your current as 0 and your target as 1. And as soon as that goal is like ticked off, you can just update it to 1. So I can update this to 1 right here, and it's gonna say that, where's this goal? This goal is 100% complete. I feel like whenever you can measure something by numbers, we're more inclined and more motivated by it. So that is the goals. The next thing we have is the languages. You can also see them on the bottom here, but here is just like a separate page if you want to see all of them. You can set your level, you can see how much time you've studied in total. This is a formula, so you don't have to figure it out. It's counting the times that you've logged in your study log, and you can see the active days that you've studied it. And you can also choose what your active languages are right here. So for example, French, it was an active language up until literally last week, but then my plans changed a lot, so it's now not active anymore. And if a language is not active, it won't show up on your main page here. So you can see that French doesn't show up here. So that's just for that. The next thing we have is the study analytics. So first thing here you can see is when you started studying that language. So basically how this is calculated is if you started studying a language a long time ago, I'm going to show this very specifically when we go into the start here page, but you basically like your first study session, you just add it in your study log, and it will then count as like the first time you ever studied it, and it will calculate from that time. That sounded confusing. I'm going to show you in a minute, so don't worry. And you can also see the last day that you studied it. So for example, if you can see that you haven't studied a language in like 3 months, it's gonna remind you like, girl, don't forget about me, you know? So the next part we have is just minutes studied. This is literally just for this little thing, but it's really interesting to see it. So you can just see exactly how many minutes you've been studying that language for. So 676 minutes of French. And days studied is the amount of active days. So for example, I started studying French 3 months ago, but I've actually only studied it for 20 days because there was a lot of days between that where I wasn't studying it. So the next thing we have is our little Discord server. So this is going to be for the people that have this template, and it's going to be basically just a little community of all these different languages. You can basically just talk with people that are learning the same language as you and share tips and, you know, find a language buddy. If your language is not here, like the language that you're studying, you can just request a language, and I'll be checking this chat all the time. I'll be adding your languages. I already know someone's going to come at me for using Discord in light mode, but I honestly prefer it so much more. Anyway, yeah, that is our Discord. And now the last thing we're gonna do, which is one of the main things, it is the start here page. So for the start here, we're gonna go into an empty version of my template because we're gonna start as if you're starting as well. So you can get this template filled out with a few examples, or you can get it completely empty, but I would recommend to get it completely empty because you don't even need it filled out, because I'm gonna show you exactly how to do it now. When you start here, you have 10 steps to get you started. So it's actually kind of getting dark, but it's kind of a vibe. I'm just gonna turn my brightness up. Okay, so step number 1 is add all the languages you are currently studying and have studied in the past. So for example, let's write in French, Spanish, and I don't know, Italian. We're going for all the Romance languages. Step number 2, decide what your active languages are and determine your level in each language. So like I said, you can put down every single language you've ever studied properly, but it doesn't have to be active. So for example, I studied French, but right now it's not a language I'm actively studying. So I'm just gonna press this for the other 2 languages, and I'm just gonna select the level for each one. So I'm a beginner. I'm gonna say advanced, but maybe intermediate. And French, also beginner. Step number 3 is write down your approximate start date for each language. So this is what I was talking about. If you want to see in your analytics how long you've been studying that language for, this is what you're gonna do. So this is essentially a study log, but you're just logging your first time that you ever studied that language. So you're just gonna say like, I don't know, first study session. So my first study session for Italian was today, properly. I studied Italian in the past, but we're starting again. Then my first study session for Spanish was in like August 2017. So I'm gonna go 2017. I don't remember which day. Let's just go 1st of August. And what was the other one? Oh, French. French, I remember. French was like the 1st of December last year. So we're gonna go 2022. Also first study session. That's it. That's all you have to do. And now if you go into your analytics, it will say exactly how many days or how many months or how many years ago you started that language. So it's very simple. I feel like when I explained it earlier, I made it a little confusing. Step number 4 is create your language learning goals. So I gave you some examples here to be a little bit more specific. Like, don't just write like, I want to be fluent, I want to improve my listening. Like, how can you improve your listening? You can say, I want to be able to listen to this TV show without using the subtitles, and so on. Just like things a little bit more specific. So here you can write, for example, in Italian, I want to watch 10 movies with no subtitle. That's a big goal. I don't think I could do that in a year. So you can write out all your goals here. I would always say it's better to have more goals that are small rather than just like 3 huge goals. Right now I just wrote 3 because I'm giving you an example. I'm not actually focusing on 3. Step number 5 is to assign a current and a target number to track your progress. So this is a thing I mentioned earlier. If it's something that is associated with a number, you can say, for example, currently I read 0 books and I have to read 5. Here I have to learn 1,000 new words, and here I have to watch 10 movies with no subtitles. And once again, if it's a goal like learn how to order food, if I have that as a goal, you can't really measure that by numbers. So what you're gonna do is just set the target as 1, because it's just kind of like you learn it or you don't, you know. Step number 6 is add your most used resources for each language. So don't worry, don't stress yourself out. Don't think that you need to now have 20 resources for each language. Just write off the top of your mind, like, what are the things you use the most? For example, I know that for Italian, Busuu is my way to go. One thing I would recommend that's really important, if there's an app that you use for multiple languages, I would really recommend to differentiate them. So for example, if I'm using Busuu for Italian and French, I'm gonna write it twice, and I'm just gonna write like IT for Italian, FR for French. You can do this however you want, but just don't make them the same name because you're gonna get confused. Like if you just write Busuu twice, you're gonna get confused. So make sure to write like a little bit after it. The reason for this is if you're adding words to your dictionary and you assign it to that resource, you're gonna have your languages mixed. So for example, if I have Busuu as a resource, when I open it up and see all the words that I've learned from it, I'm gonna see my Italian and French words mixed, which is not what you wanna see. So if you're using one resource for different languages, please differentiate them in the name. It's important. Okay, so I can now attach this to Italian. I can attach this to French. Okay, oh my god, everything is gone from my head. What do I use for Spanish? Okay, so once you write out all your resources, step number 7 is to open the page of each resource and choose the template that applies to its type. This is only in the beginning. So once you have like some resources written out, you can just go onto your websites, and you have French right here, so you can just add a website straight away. And it's gonna know that it's a website, and it's gonna know that it's a French website. It's just in the very beginning, you're gonna have to do it manually. So in the beginning, like that's why I'm saying don't even add too many resources. Just add a few, like your most used ones. And then yeah, so step number 7, for example, Closemaster is a website, so I'm just gonna click website. Busuu is an app, so I'm gonna click app. Tornacasa is a song. Busuu is an app. And Easy Spanish, I can either say person or series because it's a YouTube channel, and YouTube channels I would put as people, but it's almost like a series. I'm gonna put it as a series. No, I changed my mind. If you change your mind like me, just delete everything and it's gonna be empty again, and then you can put person. I know it's not a person, but it just makes more sense in my mind. So now that you have that set up, like I said, if you go into like people, for example, and you wanna add another person for Spanish, you can go ahead and add them, and it's automatically gonna know that it's a person. It's gonna automatically know that it's for Spanish. It's just in the very beginning, you need to do some things manually, but that's why you have the start here page. Step number 8 is to add any other relevant information based on what kind of resource it is. So for the websites, you can just add the URLs to just make things a little bit easier for yourself. You can like click on the URL straight away. For people, you choose the type of person it is. So I'm gonna choose YouTuber. Right now we have YouTuber, teacher, exchange partner. You can add anything else on here, like I don't know, anything else that a person would be a resource. And you can also add an image of them. You don't have to, it can be creepy, but if it's like a YouTuber, it doesn't matter, you know. The next thing we have is books. For books, you can add your progress. So progress is just like how far along you are with reading it. So you can just work this out on your own. Like if your book is like 300 pages and I don't know, you're a certain amount of pages through, you can just write in I'm 30% and it's gonna show up here. You can also add an image. This is like the cover of your book. The next thing is movies. Here you can just add a picture. Series, you can also just add a picture. This is really nice. Like if you have a lot of movies and a lot of series saved, it's actually really nice because you can just see like a whole little library of all the things you can watch. It's like Netflix, like you can see all the little covers. And songs is, you can just add a URL. So if you want to add the URL to the lyrics page so that you you can just quickly click onto it, this is where you would do that. So step 9 is it is time to make your study plan. So you can go over to weekly plan and start making your study plan. This is what I said earlier. You just create a new weekly checklist. You can see all your different languages. Once again, reminding you, you can press on configure template and you can, you know, change this to like Spanish or like whichever language you're studying. So just to show you how quickly it all is, you just add an item here. You go italki lesson, the language is Italian, and then you can add your teacher here, whoever it is, and it's just going to show up here. So you just do that and you can move it around based on what day you want to do it on, and that way you can just make your weekly schedule. I feel like it's honestly a little bit easier to do it here in the beginning. Like you can write out all the things you need to do. So for example, say that I want to do 3 of these lessons. I'm just going to duplicate this 3 times. I'm going to duplicate it 3 more times. Wait, okay. And then I can change this to Spanish, French, just so that you don't have to do everything 50 times. In resource, you just put the teacher that you're going to be studying with, and then when you go into weekly view, you're basically going to get all your lessons here, and then you can just kind of spread them out. Nobody's going to be doing this many italki lessons. I'm just showing you as an example to like how quick and easy it can be. And the last step we have is to join the Discord group. So as soon as you join the Discord group, you're going to see all the people studying the same languages as you, and it's just, I think it's going to be really useful. People can practice the language, like that chat can be kept in that language and you can ask for tips, and it's just a little community for all of us. So yeah, that is the language learning hub. Oh my god, I have been working on this for so long. This lighting is not it. This is how you know how long I've been talking for. Like I'm here fangirling over my own page. It got dark in that time. So if you want this template, there will be a link in my description. I hope you guys like it. I am honestly obsessed. I think this honestly has changed my, like how I feel about studying my languages now, because I just felt like I wanted to study, but I am a person who likes to keep track of everything, and I feel like if I can't track my progress, then progress is not happening. And I know maybe that's like toxic, but that's just who I am. That's the kind of person I am. Like I need to have everything planned out. So this template honestly has saved me. Like I finally have motivation to study again. So I hope you guys like it. Hope you get some inspo, and I will see you guys next time. Have fun and good luck in your language studies. I love you all. Peace out.